All right, so we just saw it with Quentin Tarantino, and now we see it with Christopher Priest, writer of Black Panther, currently on Deathstroke. Very legendary dude, and he's had enough.
Pathetic earthlings. Who can save you now?
Rush! Savior of the universe! Strange object imaged in the Imperial vortex.
So before we get into this, a little background on Christopher Priest, because it's kind of important so you know who he is. He's got a really interesting story that I don't know if I've talked about it, but I know if you go to Comics Matter, your boy Zach, he's talked about him quite a bit. He's actually a very good writer, and he has a lot of experience. So if you go here, you can kind of see all of his experience and stuff. Notably, he's most known for his amazing Black Panther run, which was really good. It's probably the best run the character ever had under him. And he was also a full editor of the Spider-Man comics. So he has a lot of experience. He's done a lot of things. And he left comics for a long time. Now, why did he leave comics? Well, the reason he left comics is because it got to a point where they're like, hey, we want you to write this black guy. And that's all they gave him to write. He didn't get to write anybody else. And it became like a shtick. And he was one of the people that were like, I just don't, I'm not doing this. This isn't what I want to do. Why can't I write anybody? So he left and went and did other things. He ended up becoming a Baptist preacher. And that's one of the main reasons he goes by the name Priest, even though I think that's his last name for real. I don't know if he changed it or not. Yeah. So born Christopher Osley, and then he changed it to Priest. And that's what he's mostly known by. Well, that's what he wants you to call him anyway. But he has a lot of experience. He's actually a very good writer. Very good writer. He's currently writing Deathstroke. And as you'll see now, he's going in to write Vampirella. So some more background real quick. Vampirella is a character that's been around for a long time. And he's going to go write her now. And I'm going to probably put this book in my poll list now. Because, man, this interview, this is great. So they really try to get him in a gotcha moment and fail, because he pretty much just takes the switch from the tree and spanks their butt. It's very, very good. Comic books are a very interesting medium right now. I've done a lot of comic book stuff on my other channel. I'll do reviews over there. And that's a long story with my two channels, but I used to have that channel for a long time. It wasn't monetized because of YouTube's changeover, so I made videos over there for a year. It got put in some kind of weird limbo, so I had to delete like all the videos over there, and then boom, it was good to go. It's a strange thing that happened, but I ended up moving over to this channel, and now I have this channel, blah, blah, blah. But the point of the story is comic books were something that I was covering a lot because of the professionals, hand quotations there, are really, really bad people. A lot of the people in comic books are gatekeepers now. It's really, really wokeness going on over there. Extreme wokeness, the intersectional kind. And they pretty much run out anybody that has wrongthink. Like if you even are an inch to the right, they're gone. They will boot you out. There was a guy named Mitch Brettweiser who did a picture of Donald Trump with a sword, and he's like, I hope we can all just come together now. This is right after the election, and just heal everything, and we'll all get along, and I wish him a good presidency, and I hope he does well. Boom, they jumped on him just for doing that, and he had to leave the comic industry. It's insane. So when you see somebody clap back at these people, because make no mistake, Newsrama, CBR, comicbook.com, these people are booty lickers. And all they do when it comes to a new book or something is they just lick butt. That's all they do. They never give any kind of bad reviews to anything, especially if they're high up on the victim ladder. They give them an extra butt licking. There's no real criticism in comics. And if you give them criticism, they equate this to a form of attack, because words are literally as bad as physical harm when it comes to these people. It's a long story. I didn't want to go over the downfall of comics in this video, but I want to give you a rundown to how bad things are. That's why a lot of people you see run and they've formed Comicsgate, which is a lot of people formerly from the industry and a lot of disgruntled customers who want something new and want professionalism. Well, the professionalism isn't coming, so they've made something new. That's why you get a lot of big books like Cyberfrog, Jawbreakers, etc., etc. Tug's got a book coming out, Case of the Littlest Umbrella, and so on. So people are starting something new, and they still go after them. But you still have some good people in there. Christopher Priest, I consider a good person. He does good work. He's actually very talented. And he didn't want to be like just some dude that was, used because he's black, because he's only going to write characters that look like him. He didn't want to do that. And he could have stayed working probably in the industry. He's back, but that's only because they gave him like just Deathstroke and Justice League and a few other books, right? Because they did something like that. He's like, okay, I'll come back. So he's doing Vampirella now. And that's what this whole interview is pretty much about. But it's some of the answers he gives to some of these questions that prompt this down here, where they say, we'd like to ask you some follow-up questions. And oh boy, you know what that's going to go. Of course, we have Chris Arnett here, who is the writer of that article. Very, very lovely guy there. Got the pronouns there in the tag, so we already know. All right, so now let's go over what got this guy so mad and what's probably going to trigger some NPCs. So here's the two questions. The rest of the interview is mostly standard. This is about Vampirella. And it was when he got to these questions down here that really set this guy off. So it starts off with this question. Someone walk around in that Trina Robbins design costume is bound to get some head turns. If I know you as much as I think I do, you're going to tackle that head on, right? How are you going to get into the subject of the costume? So notably, as you can see up here, the costume of Vampirella is quite provocative and revealing, right? It's a very, very skimpy outfit. And that's a no-no when it comes to these people. Women must be very wide and, misshapen almost, and they need to be completely covered. If a woman in comics, and this is what's really funny, if a woman in comics is feminine or, provocative looking, well stacked, if you know what I'm saying, often the times they make a character like that the villain. A heroine now, is particularly over in Marvel Comics, is more of a masculine type of character. That's why you saw Captain Marvel has her head kind of shaved on the sides now, really short hair, stuff like that. That's the kind of woman they want to show there. And if a woman is, looking good, well, you can probably bet on her being a villain or a support character or something like that. So that's kind of why he says that question. So Priest has an answer, and he says, well, yes, we will have a go at it. The basic argument is simple. Where do you draw the line between women's liberation and women's exploitation, and who gets to draw it? Who gets to define femininity, and why should an extraterrestrial have to submit to that definition? It's like the world woke up in the last few years and realized we actually have two genders and both of them matter. This is going to get him in trouble right here. That's going to get him in trouble. You'll see. So now we have a heightened sense of scrutiny of themes and behaviors, and that poor guy Joe Biden gets caught up in the switches. I'll confess, I'm terrified of women because I'm a Joe Biden. That's also going to get him in trouble. I was taught to pay a lady a compliment and open doors, and I want to be friendly and accessible, but I'm absolutely terrified of having my good intentions taken in a bizarrely paranoid light. That's going to get him in trouble. That's going to get him in trouble. It is comical to me that I am far too often seen as a creepy by women, especially black women, because they have been conditioned by their personal experience and their media consumption to misinterpret a simple hello. These days, I cannot pay a woman a compliment without a legal preamble and assurances that no, I am not hitting on you, and even then, I get the skunk eye of suspicion. Nothing he says here is wrong. Nothing. And we'll get into that because his answers are very good. Very good. Because he talks about this stuff in his response. Because they actually hit him up and are like, oh, can we get you to respond to some of these questions, sir? So it's going to get interesting. But I got to read these questions first so that his response makes a little bit more sense. Okay. So continues on, which is a little insulting because this guilty until proven innocent defense posture presumes I am other people or that the bar is set so low for me that I'll jump into bed with just about anybody I happen to meet. It's like we've gone off too far from the point where women are not just being protected, but being alienated to some extent because I have no earthly clue how to deal with them, and I'm frankly scared to shake their hand. This is a beautiful statement here because it's true. It's a lot different now than it was, 5 years ago even. Like, I've told this story before in a video, but I'm going to tell it again for those who didn't catch that one. But it is pretty different now. So there was a guy who got in trouble for being a good Samaritan. He was driving. There was a woman broke down on the side of the road. And this is true. You can look this up. Just Google guy pulls over, woman, grope, fake or something. I'm sure if you put some of those keywords in there, you'll find it. But the story is the guy pulled over to help a woman who was broke down. And for some reason, she decided to tell police afterward that, he tried stuff on her. The dude lost his job, all kinds of stuff, just because he pulled over to help someone that was broken down. She later came out and said, yeah, I made it all up, but it was too late. I mean, that's the world that we live in. So, goes on to say, is Vampirella's wardrobe choice sexist? I don't know. Obviously, she doesn't think so. As I see her, she comes from a culture much like Star Trek's Betazoid, or is it Beta Z or Betazoid? I think we're talking about Deanna Troi from Star Trek The Next Generation, but where people wear little or nothing at all. If anything, she wonders why humans choose to smother ourselves in so much fabric and why we're all so bound by self-loathing. There are hundreds of women who enjoy cosplaying as her, and maybe hundreds of thousands that are offended by the character. How do we reconcile all of that for the 21st century? I actually think that that's a pretty interesting take, that she doesn't see it as a bad thing, humans do. I'm interested in this guy's run, and I'm probably going to pick it up and read it. Mostly because I really liked his responses here, but it's okay, we go on. One thing I won't do is cover her up. I accepted the gig. Right, Vampirella. If you change the outfit, she's no longer Vampirella. Frankly, her costume is the only thing about her that makes her at all shocking or controversial. My goal, and the readers will have to let us know if we're passing or failing, is to make the book as much about femininity as about, doing vampire stuff. The storyline is driven by women, mostly populated by women, of all shapes and sizes and ethnicities, and most of them dress as, hot as they dare. The singer-rapper Lizzo is a terrific example. Is her blatant liberating? Is she liberating or is she being exploited? How about Beyonce? Do we put her in a raincoat or cheer Bey on? That was a long answer. But now we're getting into the second one real quick. So he says, so Priest, Vampirella is here on Earth. What would you do if you found yourself, I don't know, sharing a cab with her? I'd ask the driver to pull over and let me out. I'm a Christian, so I have these issues with all of that, fornicating in your mind stuff. I don't live a perfect life, but I try to avoid cluttering out my conscience. Among the things the printed page cannot convey is amazing, intoxicating glow, and yes, smell of a woman. All women are beautiful from 8 to 80, regardless of weight, height, or nationality. I wouldn't share a cab with a woman as underdressed as Vampy, which sounds hypocritical because I'm writing her, but I write Deathstroke too, and I wouldn't share a cab with him either. All right, so let's get into this now that the questions are out of the way. And sorry, I know that took a few minutes, but I have to go through those two questions because that's what this is all about. And his response is so beautiful. He literally just takes his hand to the guy's face like this. Like just smacks him right across the face. Like, watch your mouth, boy. Shut up. And it's beautiful. I just did a video on Quentin Tarantino the other day, basically doing the same thing, but much more reserved. Now with Priest. Priest gets right into him and smacks him around, and it's beautiful. I checked Twitter today, and he hasn't been attacked yet. It'll be really interesting to see how they navigate this one. I think the they might just end up ignoring him. But they tried. They tried. Check this out. So the above interview was conducted via email earlier this week and received all of Mr. Priest's responses along with all of our original answers or questions. Newsrama asked Priest would respond to some follow-up questions Friday by email, and he agreed. Okay, so our original questions to you were about Vampirella, the comic book, and our role is to talk about that and not audit your personal life. But your responses appear to be hyper-aware of a social climate you seem to lament in terms of relationships between genders and conduct towards one another. So then he responds, I lament the social climate in general on all levels. I lament our lack of civility and lack of empathy, lack of patience and understanding. I hate the way we assassinate one another with our thumbs. All this hostility in social and other media, it's not just gender issues. I think that's beautiful. And keep in mind, this is the guy he's talking to right here. He, him. Now, we know how this works. This guy is an assassination expert, and that's what he's looking to do here. And he's going to say it right here, where he starts asking about Joe Biden. Because you remember, he said earlier that he felt bad for Joe Biden. So he says, with Joe Biden, without citing the actual specific behavior he's under scrutiny for, stating things like the amazing, intoxicating glow and yes, smell of a woman, and by offering you're often seen as creepy by women, it seems like unintentionally inviting the sort of reaction assumptions that you state you're afraid of and inviting the same scrutiny Biden is under. Was your intent, and are you prepared for pushback to your words and questions to be asked? That's pretty much like kind of a vague threat there, isn't it? Like, are you saying that women are attractive? Do you think women are only their looks, sir? And this guy's like, he's not having it. He just pretty much smacks him across the face. He says, wow, there's a lot to unpack there. But let's start by saying I seriously doubt anyone reading this is not aware of the Biden issue to which I am referring. I come neither to defend Biden or to bury him. So I think you are taking my poor Joe reference a bit too seriously. And that's all these people do is take things seriously. You say something like this, they'll destroy you. And you will be out of a job. You're writing Batman today. Tomorrow, you're writing nothing. You're done. And it's people like this newsarama guy with all of this power for no reason. And it's like this in every form of media right now. It really is. I wasn't trying to litigate Biden, only to make a point about how hypersensitive and overly politicized our nation is and how this will impact Vampirella in her series. Assembling desperate quotes to paint me as some kind of deviant makes that point for me. That is so, listen to that statement. You were trying to paint me as a deviant. That is a beautiful sentence. I love that people are getting sick of this. And maybe we're finally starting to see pushback on all of this stuff, because this is a big deal. You don't read stuff like this that often. I stand by my statements. The amazing, intoxicating glow and yes, smell of a woman is something difficult, if not possible, to convey in literature, which was my point. But your question was about me sitting in a taxi with a near-naked woman, and I answered that honestly. And my point was relevant to understanding the challenges and conflicts Vampirella will face in this series. This is the environment Vampirella finds herself in, people misinterpreting her actions, words, and motives. This is why I mentioned to place the work we are doing with Vampirella into context. Where a person like Vampy walking around in our world or riding in a taxi with me, she would be misinterpreted, and every word she says would be drilled into looking for the worst possible interpretation of it. I can't help but wonder why anybody anywhere speaks publicly, because no word spoken by anyone can withstand this level of ridiculous scrutiny. And then he's just like asking another stupid question here. He says, in response to you state it's like the world woke up in the last few years and realized we recently have two genders and both of them matter. While not assuming your intent one way or another, it seems you overlook genders outside of the female paradigm. Can you speak to that? And then he says, he's like, dude, I've done stuff for LGBTQ issues. He says, it was a simple interview. I was promoting a comic book, and I was a really busy writer. I was typing really fast and speaking honestly while engaging with you. What I won't do, not even for my own safety, is censor myself and try to anticipate every horrible way someone might choose to misinterpret something I've written and said. If anything, that just makes my point for me about how free speech is compromised. It's a tough environment to publish comic books, and because every publisher is terrified by the spectrum of extreme possible reactions from increasingly intolerant environments where everybody's playing gotcha and looking for the worst possible and most extremely negative interpretations of everything. The whole point of free speech is my duty to defend others' rights to have it, not to shout them down or demonize them. So this was very beautiful, and the comments here are even better. They're all pretty much smashing him down. I think the interviewer got harsh on him. Why would you attack him? Priest, I hate the way we assassinate one another with our thumbs, all this hostility in social media and such. Oh boy, do I have a treat for you. What a blatant attack that they did on this man. And people aren't having it because he's pretty well loved. The guy's been around for a long time, and everyone likes him. He's a pretty cool dude. He's done a lot of really great work. And his reactions and answers to this were amazing. Because we do live in a time where you do have to be worried about sharing that cab. It's a sad state. It really is. But Twitter and all these garbage social media platforms, they're the ones to blame for this. They've done terrible things to our culture and our society. And I've made this a long video because I really want to go over this because I really liked his reactions. I really liked what he had to say. We live in a world where these are the comic books we are getting. Look at this. So this is the Humanoids brand that's coming out. And look at this cover. Do you see what this is sold on? Social justice warrior, superpowered surgeon badass. Is anybody going to read this comic book? No. No, they're not. And these people have destroyed the industry so bad, and they don't even realize it. Check out this big comic book person here, and look at all of the people checking out Artist Alley. Boy, they sure are packed there, aren't they? They've done this to themselves. And that interview with Christopher Priest is the perfect example, because that totally was a gotcha moment. He was looking to attack and bury him. And I will be curious to see if they try to on Twitter, because that's pretty much where the public trials of celebrities takes place. Look at Vic Mignogna, right? Look at the way he's getting treated. All that came from social media. And it's the things that are happening to him right now that Christopher Priest is basically saying, I don't want any part. I don't want that to happen to me. So hell yeah, I'll get out of the cab. I would get out of the cab too. And it's sad. It's really sad that that's the world we live in, but it is. And hopefully, we get more people like Priest that will stand up and say, yeah, enough is enough. I would like to see that. So anyway, like and subscribe. Let me know what you think about this interview. Do you think it's as awesome as I did? I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Also, check out that notification bell. Maybe slap it, hit it real hard. Make sure you still subscribe. Check out the links in the description, particularly my Twitch. I would appreciate it if you check that out. I'd love to do some gaming streams. And I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.